The 10:45 p.m. bus was nearly empty, as it always was. Daniel had been driving this late-night route for almost a decade, and he knew it well. Every stop, every turn, every pothole in the road. He also knew the passengers. The tired office workers, the occasional college student studying under dim fluorescent lights, the janitors heading home after long shifts. Tonight felt different, though. There was a strange stillness in the air. A wait. Only 2 passengers remained. A young woman with headphones, lost in her music, and an old man with a wrinkled grocery bag clutched in his lap. Neither had spoken a word. Daniel glanced at the time. 10:52 p.m. Just a few more stops, and then he could head back to the depot. The next stop was an unusual one. Just a lonely street light and a rusted bench at the edge of town. He couldn't remember the last time someone had actually gotten on there. Yet tonight, someone was waiting. A man stood just outside the glow of the street lamp. He was dressed in an old-fashioned black suit, the kind Daniel's grandfather used to wear in old photographs. His skin was pale, almost waxy under the flickering light. He wasn't checking his phone, wasn't pacing impatiently, just standing, staring straight ahead. The sight sent an uneasy chill through Daniel's spine. The bus wheezed to a stop. The doors creaked open. Daniel hesitated before speaking. "Last ride of the night, buddy. You getting on?" The man didn't reply. He stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. He moved with eerie precision, like every step had been calculated. Something felt wrong. The man didn't pay. Didn't even acknowledge Daniel's presence. He simply walked down the aisle, his footsteps impossibly silent. Then, he lowered himself into the last row at the very back of the bus. Daniel swallowed. He checked the mirror. The man sat unnervingly still, his hands folded in his lap. His gaze wasn't directed at anything in particular, just forward, unfocused. Daniel exhaled and kept driving. The road stretched ahead, dark and empty. The old man nodded off, his grocery bag slipping slightly from his hands. The young woman was still absorbed in her music, completely unaware. Daniel checked the mirror again. The man in the suit hadn't moved. But something was different. Had he been sitting that far forward before? Daniel blinked. No, that didn't make sense. The man had taken a seat in the last row. He was sure of it. But now he was a few rows closer. Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. He hadn't heard footsteps. Hadn't heard anything at all. The bus rumbled on. The lights overhead flickered. A few more minutes passed. Daniel checked again. Closer. Now the man was sitting just a few rows behind the old man. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. His palms grew slick against the wheel. It had to be a trick of the light. Maybe the stress of the night was messing with his head. But something deep in his gut told him otherwise. Another glance. Closer. Daniel sucked in a sharp breath. The man was now in the third row. Right behind the old man. Daniel watched, his fingers clenching the wheel. Then, something happened. The old man stirred in his seat. He shifted slightly, rubbing his face. Slowly, His gaze flicked over his shoulder, toward the man behind him. The change in his expression was instant. The color drained from his face. His body went rigid. His lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Then, with a sudden, jerky movement, the old man lunged for the stop cord. The bell rang sharply, echoing through the bus. Daniel jumped. The old man's voice was barely above a whisper. "Let me off. Now." His eyes were wide with raw terror. Daniel swallowed and pulled over. The doors hissed open. The old man scrambled to his feet, nearly tripping over himself as he rushed off the bus. He didn't even look back. The doors shut. The bus rolled forward again. Daniel's heart was hammering. He checked the mirror. The man in the suit was now in the front row. Right behind him. Daniel's breath came in shallow gasps. His knuckles turned white against the wheel. He could feel the man behind him now silent, motionless, but there. The air grew colder. The street lights outside flickered as they passed. Daniel wanted to speak. Wanted to ask, "Who are you? What do you want?" But he didn't dare. The bus rolled on, silent except for the humming of the engine. Then, out of the corner of his eye, the young woman was gone. Daniel's throat tightened. He hadn't stopped again. He hadn't opened the doors. Yet her seat was empty. The only passenger left was the man in the suit. A breath of cold air brushed the back of Daniel's neck. The bus swerved. He yelped, gripping the wheel, trying to steady the vehicle. He braced himself, then forced himself to turn around. The seat was empty. The man was gone. Daniel's chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. His eyes darted up to the mirror, scanning the aisle. Nothing. Just empty seats. His hands trembled as he turned back to the road. Maybe it was over. Maybe. In the mirror, the man was in the driver's seat. Daniel barely had time to scream before everything went black. The next morning, the bus was found idling at the final stop. The doors were shut. The engine was still running. But there was no sign of Daniel. No sign of the old man. No sign of the young woman. The only thing the investigators found was a single, black suit jacket, draped neatly over the driver's seat. And the bus. The bus kept running. But sometimes, late at night, if you wait at that lonely stop at the edge of town, a bus will pull up. And if you step inside, you might just find a man in a black suit, sitting silently in the last row, waiting.